What if I told you that your garden might be waging a secret war underground, where plants are sabotaging each other without you even knowing it? Welcome back to Don't Do This Guide. Today, we're diving into the surprising plants you should never plant together. Companion planting is a time-honored technique where certain plants are grown together for mutual benefit, like improving growth, repelling pests, or enhancing flavor. But did you know that some plants are sworn enemies? They can stunt each other's growth, attract pests, or even release chemicals to harm their neighbors. In this video, we'll uncover the surprising plant combinations you should avoid to keep your garden thriving. We'll delve into the reasons behind these conflicts, exploring the fascinating world of plant interactions and how they can make or break your gardening success. So grab your gardening gloves and let's get started. Now you might think pairing tomatoes and corn is a match made in heaven, especially if you're dreaming of fresh summer salads. But hold on. In the garden, it's a different story. Both tomatoes and corn are heavy feeders. They need a lot of nutrients to grow. They often go after the same nutrients, especially nitrogen. This competition can leave both plants struggling. Your corn might not grow tall and your tomatoes might produce fewer fruits. Instead, give them their own space to thrive. Remember, a happy garden is a well-fed garden. Let's move on to another surprising pairing. Beans and onions. Beans are nitrogen fixers, converting atmospheric nitrogen into a usable form. Onions, on the other hand, prefer a more balanced diet. When you plant beans and onions together, the beans can over-fertilize the soil with nitrogen, hindering the onion's growth. So, what's the solution? It's all about spacing and observation. You can plant beans and onions in the same garden bed, but keep them a good distance apart. Alternatively, plant them in separate beds altogether. And don't forget to rotate your crops each year to prevent nutrient imbalances in the soil. Now, let's talk about cucumbers and aromatic herbs, a pairing that might seem idyllic but can turn into a real-life garden drama. Some aromatic herbs, particularly those in the mint family, can stunt the growth of cucumbers. This is due to allelopathy, where plants release chemicals that affect the growth of other plants. Herbs like sage and rosemary release chemicals that can inhibit cucumber roots. This can lead to stunted growth, reduced yields, and increased susceptibility to pests and diseases. So what's a gardener to do? Not all aromatic herbs are bad for cucumbers. Herbs like dill and basil can benefit cucumbers by attracting beneficial insects and improving their flavor. If you're growing cucumbers, avoid planting them near sage, rosemary, or other members of the mint family. Instead, opt for companion plants that will enhance their growth and flavor. Observation is key. If you notice any signs of stunted growth, take a closer look at their neighbors. Both potatoes and tomatoes belong to the same plant family, Solanaceae, making them susceptible to the same diseases and pests. One of the biggest threats is late blight, a fungal disease that can decimate both crops. Pests like tomato hornworms and potato beetles will happily munch on both plants. So how can you protect your precious potatoes and tomatoes? Keep them well separated in the garden. Ideally, plant them in different beds, rotating their locations each year to disrupt pest and disease cycles. Choose blight-resistant varieties, practice good garden hygiene, and keep a watchful eye out for any signs of trouble. Prevention is always better than cure. Remember, a little planning goes a long way in creating a thriving and productive garden. Sunflowers release chemicals called allelochemicals into the soil, inhibiting the growth of nearby plants. Potatoes are particularly vulnerable to these chemical attacks. These allelochemicals can interfere with potato growth, leading to stunted plants and reduced yields. Other plants, especially those in the nightshade family like tomatoes, eggplants, and peppers, can also be sensitive to sunflowers' allelopathic tendencies. If you're planning on growing sunflowers, choose their location wisely. Avoid planting them near potato patches or other sensitive plants. Give them their own space to shine, and let your potatoes thrive in a chemical-free zone. Gardening is all about balance and understanding the subtle interactions between plants. By choosing our plant companions carefully, we can create a harmonious and productive garden. While dill is a welcome companion to many plants, it seems to have a particular grudge against carrots. Planting dill near your carrots can stunt their growth, leading to smaller, less flavorful roots. Some speculate that dill releases chemicals into the soil that inhibit carrot growth. Whatever the reason, it's best to keep these two garden residents well separated. Plant your dill elsewhere in the garden, where it can work its magic on other plants. Let your carrots grow to their full potential in a dill-free zone. Even the most experienced gardeners are constantly learning and adapting their practices based on observation and experimentation. Now, let's talk about fennel, a plant that's both loved and loathed in the garden. Fennel is an allelopathic plant, releasing chemicals into the soil that can inhibit the growth of other plants nearby. This allelopathic tendency makes fennel a poor companion for almost any garden plant. Planting it near other vegetables, herbs, or even flowers can lead to stunted growth, reduced yields, and even the death of sensitive plants. If you're planning on growing fennel, give it its own dedicated space, far away from other plants. Alternatively, grow it in containers to keep its allelopathic tendencies in check. You can always harvest the fennel fronds and use them as a natural mulch around other plants. Just be sure to avoid direct contact with the stems, as they contain the highest concentration of allelochemicals. By understanding the unique characteristics of each plant, we can create a thriving and productive space where everyone can coexist in harmony. Now let's talk about a pairing that might seem harmless, but can lead to a whole host of pest problems: cabbage and strawberries. Cabbage is a magnet for cabbage white butterflies, which lay eggs that hatch into hungry caterpillars. These caterpillars love to munch on both cabbage and strawberries. Cabbage and strawberries also have competing root systems, vying for the same nutrients and water in the soil. This competition can weaken both plants, making them more susceptible to pests and diseases. So how can you protect your precious cabbage and strawberries? Keep them well separated in the garden. Plant your cabbage in one area and your strawberries in another, creating a physical barrier that will deter pests and reduce competition. Use netting or row covers to protect your plants from cabbage white butterflies and other flying pests. Keep a watchful eye out for any signs of trouble, taking prompt action to address pest problems before they get out of hand. Peppers and beans, two staples of the summer garden, might seem like a match made in heaven. However, when planted together, peppers and beans can engage in a fierce battle for resources. Both plants are heavy feeders, requiring a lot of nutrients, especially nitrogen and phosphorus. When forced to share the same patch of soil, peppers and beans can quickly deplete the available nutrients. Peppers, with their bushy foliage, can shade out the smaller bean plants, limiting their access to sunlight. So how can you avoid this garden conflict? Give peppers and beans their own space to thrive. Plant them in separate beds or containers, ensuring that each plant has access to ample nutrients, sunlight, and water. Gardening is all about understanding the unique needs of each plant. Create an environment where they can thrive individually and contribute to a harmonious and productive garden ecosystem. Let's talk about a plant that takes allelopathy to a whole new level: the black walnut tree. Black walnut trees release a chemical called juglone into the soil through their roots, leaves, and husks. Juglone is highly toxic to many plants, inhibiting their growth and even killing them. Plants like tomatoes, potatoes, peppers, blueberries, rhododendrons, and some grasses are susceptible. Symptoms include wilting, yellowing leaves, stunted growth, and death. Be mindful of its allelopathic tendencies when planting your garden. Avoid planting susceptible plants within the tree's root zone, which can extend up to 50 feet. It's better to be safe than sorry with the black walnut tree. And there you have it, the surprising plants you should never plant together. By avoiding these combinations, you'll set your garden up for success, ensuring healthy plants and bountiful harvests. Companion planting is like matchmaking for plants. Get it right, and your garden will thank you with lush growth and abundant produce. Don't be afraid to experiment, observe your plants closely, and learn from both your successes and your mistakes. If you found value in this video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to Don't Do This Guide for more tips and tricks to avoid common pitfalls. Share your own gardening experiences in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks for watching, and happy gardening.